A few years ago, VR was one of the most popular things on the internet at the time. It was cool, it felt like the future and stuff. The escaping reality, essentially, was what most people wanted to do. It felt like the future. However, during that time, there was one game that dominated all other VR games in player base and popularity. And that game was Gorilla Tag. And today I'm going to be talking about how the game slowly but surely fell into becoming just a cash grab. It all started in February of 2021 when a small little game was released onto the SideQuest platform for MetaQuest. However, the game wouldn't necessarily become big until December of 2022, when it rose into popularity and became one of, if not the biggest VR games. The reason the game was fun is because I'm guessing there were plenty of people on the game messing around, and no matter what you really did, it would always be a fun time. You could go ghost hunting, you could just play the game normally. However, at the time, there wasn't that many things in the game. There was only one map, and there wasn't an item shop. And the game only had a few developers. So they, of course, had to get more things into the game. And that's when they created the Caves map. And I am pretty sure that is what rose the game in popularity. There were videos flooding everywhere about the Caves map. It was on YouTube, it was on TikTok. Hell, you could probably find videos on it on some foreign platform like Google Giggles or some shit like that. And I'm sure that people saw how vibrant and colorful it was. It also introduced a new thing into the game, which would later mainly be known as the butt of the game, minigames. Do you want to play minigames? Now, if you don't know what minigames are, then yes, you do, because you're lying. If you've played at least one game that isn't Minecraft or Roblox, then you know what a minigame is. A minigame is a game in another game that is like miniature. Like, you know those little games that you'd play in FNAF at the end of some nights? Those are mini games. For Gorilla Tag, however, the devs didn't make them. Players did. They made games like Crates and Hide and Seeks. And there was plenty to do now, much more than earlier. So, again, the player base rose. Now, I would go into deep detail on every update. If you guys want that, then I could make a video on that. But for now, let's get to the rest of the video. After a few more updates like the shop and some new maps, like canyons, mountains, all that stuff, the game was perfect. People were loving it, and people were buying stuff from the game, of course. However, the main problem came when Lemming, the owner of the game, sold the game to a company known as Another Axiom. And Another Axiom, at first, was just any other company. However, once Another Axiom came into play, more stuff that you needed to buy started to be added. Like, more items and sets. And those sets couldn't be bought with shiny rocks. If you don't know what shiny rocks are, they were basically the in-game currency. You gained 100 of them every single day you played. So instead of that, you would have to buy it directly with real money. No in-game currency that you could earn without buying anything. No, real money and real money only. So the player base got a bit mad, but they thought nothing of it. Another Axiom also owned a whole bunch of other games, like Orion Drift, and that's the only one I know. However, after 2024-ish, the game started losing popularity in it. Now, I'm guessing there are some reasons for it at first, but it wasn't that deep in a decline of popularity. At least until KID happened. Just like the universe, one day KID just popped out of nowhere. It was this British company, and it focused on protecting children on the internet, which there's nothing wrong with protecting children on the internet. However, this company asked for a lot of stuff from you. You see, basically what KID would mainly ask for and do is they would try and estimate your age, essentially. Like, you would have to type in your age, and then it would either check your background and do all that stuff. However, if you say you are over the age of 18, then you're going to need some stuff. You're going to need to give them your email, which, I mean, you know, it's all good. You give your email to most things. They would ask for face scan. Okay. That's worse, but nothing too bad. Then they'd ask for your ID and social security number, and then your fucking credit card number. Now, KID claimed that they deleted all the information afterwards. However, how can you trust them when they are literally using AI on their website? Like, look, right here, this is AI. You can tell this is AI. If you can't tell this is AI, then you're over the age of like 50, dude. Now, a lot of people were very concerned about it, as they should be. However, Gorilla Tag wanted to cover this up, kind of. I'm guessing that they told finger painters, which was essentially the program's way of saying, these guys are real. These are the real big creators. And some notable figures on there were J-Man Curly, K9, Elliot, those kinds of people. However, I think, personally, that Gorilla Tag told them to tell people that KID was not going to steal any of their information. And if they wanted to keep the finger painter, then they would have to do that. And I'm not saying this is at all Lemming's fault. No. Kind of. Lemming should have maybe done a bit of research. By the way, Lemming is the creator of the game. Could have done a bit of research into what KID is and go on their website. If they didn't have a website created at that point, then it's not his fault. But the thing is, he wasn't in charge at the time. Another Axiom was. And he didn't own the game anymore, really. Another Axiom did. Another Axiom was the one calling the shots. So, Lemming made the worst decision possible for his game, selling it to another Axiom. What he thought was a good decision just turned out to come back and bite him right in the ass. But that KID didn't exactly kill a whole bunch of players playing, right? It was just something that you needed to do. Wrong. If you didn't do it, then you wouldn't be able to chat at all. And one of Gorilla Tag's main things in the game is chatting with other people. Also, you wouldn't be able, if you lied about your age and they found out that you weren't the age that you said you were, no more Gorilla Tag for you. It's stupid. Also, you weren't able to see people's names and a whole bunch of other things. Like, if you were, like, under the age of 13 or something. I don't remember. But you weren't able to do any of that. And that is a big part of the game that they just stripped away from the players at the time. I remember when this happened. I was devastated. I stopped playing Gorilla Tag at the time. So, what happened after that? Well, the game was pretty normal for a bit. Just less people. Until a few weeks ago, when they decided that they were gonna add a fucking subscription. And at this point, Gorilla Tag is dead. There are hardly any players online now. This game used to be thriving, and now it is simply gone, overshadowed by other VR games, and just games in general. It's overshadowed by games now like Blade and Sorcery, Animal Company, and hell, Animal Company and UGG, and a lot of the games are Gorilla Tag related. And I think that that's a bit of a problem. So, in conclusion, Gorilla Tag was never a bad game to begin with. The creator's choices were bad. And even though the choices were bad that he made, it still made a giant cultural impact. Plenty of games nowadays have stuff related to Gorilla Tag. Games like Animal Company, UGG, Lethal Gorilla, all that stuff wouldn't be around if Gorilla Tag wouldn't be around. I don't really play VR anymore that much, but I still do it occasionally. So, you're gonna have to thank Gorilla Tag for at least one thing. But anyways, that's it for today's video. And I know that I would say I might be quitting, but I'm not. I decided to keep this stuff. Sorry I haven't uploaded in a few months. I've been doing some shit. I went on vacation, all the normal shit. But I hope y'all did enjoy, and I will see y'all next time. Goodbye. Want to go say it like that?